Hey friends, are you ready for a radical new beginning? Well, ready or not, here it comes. That's this new moon in Virgo. Welcome to the House of Good Spirit. I'm your host, Whitney Kranz. You know me, your astro bestie and your mystic sis, here to translate the otherworldly wisdom of the cosmos into down-to-earth and actionable insights. This is where we gather to dream big, to plan intentionally, and to co-create our futures by tuning into the power of each new moon and full moon to support our personal and spiritual development. If that sounds like your thing, hit the like button and subscribe to keep our cosmic conversation going. So let's overview this new moon in Virgo, shall we? It happens on August 23rd at 1:06 a.m. That's US Central Time. So we're going to feel it on the night of the 22nd. In fact, if you're in Europe or hey, even on the East Coast, you will have this lunation taking place on the 22nd. And listen, this lunation isn't just any Virgo new moon. It's at 0 degrees exactly, which means it's a powerful point of pure potential and new beginnings. A lot of astrologers, myself included, are viewing this as the start of eclipse season. You know what that means? Eclipse season is a little wider than usual. Why is that? Because this new moon happens at 0 degrees Virgo, and then in late September on the 21st, we'll have a Virgo solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo. So basically, a solar eclipse is like a supercharged new moon. So what that means is 2 new moons right in a row. We're on the threshold of eclipse season here, so it's ripe with manifestation potential. Now, you want to know what it means for your chart specifically, where you're headed? Book a personalized transit reading. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Before we dive into Virgo and the themes of this new moon, you know what time it is. It's time to talk to our community. Today, I have Cherry with us. Cherry is such a delight of a client of mine, and she's been going through a lot of personal transformation, certainly. Cherry has a story to share with us about our last new moon, the very powerful Leo new moon.
Hi, Whitney. Cherry here, coming in for the new moon report. This new moon is hitting my second house, and with all of these outer planetary configurations, is also connected to my MC at 3 degrees of Aries. And I have been, as you know, working on a very large computer program, and I knew I would reach a point where I would have to deep dive into some serious math, and I was a little worried. But yesterday, all of this information came through. It was quite visionary. I had images in my mind, I had understanding in my body, and over about 6 hours, I was able to graph out the data hierarchy for the program I'm writing, and that is going to inform how I progress from here. So that was very exciting. And bonus story, Mercury retrograde in the second house has me refiling my I-9 and my W-4 at the studios I work at, since my name is now legally Cherry. So that's all very exciting. Thanks for having this opportunity to share stories on your channel. I love what you're doing. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Wow, Cherry. Okay, so exciting. If you all didn't gather from that, Cherry is freaking brilliant. That is so cool. I love that you had this wild inspiration. Obviously, this new moon was directly trining your MC, getting these downloads. I know nothing about computer programming. You're incredible. And to do that while Mercury was in retrograde, incredible. You're amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Cherry. If you have a story to share, I want to feature you here on my podcast. Connect with me on Instagram. Send me a quick 1-minute DM telling me what's been going on for you. How is this new moon landing in your chart? Did you experience anything profound over our last Mercury retrograde? As we look forward to eclipse season, what's happening for you? I would love to hear from you because the House of Good Spirit, remember, this is a place where all of us gather. So I hope to find you in my DMs soon. With that, let's transition into Virgo. We'll do a bit of a deep dive on Virgo before we talk about what's happening in the sky and what it all means. Let me start with this. Have you ever felt that intense pressure to get something exactly right. The type of feeling where every word, no, every syllable matters, not for the sake of the words themselves, but for the result. That killing anxiety that it still won't be enough. Have you ever been so paralyzed by perfection that you can't breathe? No? Well, lucky you. You must not have any planets in Virgo. Maybe they called you a goody two-shoes, an overachiever, a teacher's pet. Well, hey, joke's on them, right? We grew up and became the teacher. Virgo has this hunger for excellence that's so deep that you know nothing but that hunger. And priorities. Priorities are everything to a Virgo. It doesn't mean the priorities have to make sense to others, but if it's not aligned with our priorities, we're out. No fucks to give. And listen, if this all feels a little intense, you're right. It's because at the core of Virgo is an inner flame. It's a flame of spiritual wisdom and deep burning, deep knowing. It burns so bright. So Virgo is our highest octave of Mercury. So you're counting pennies, you're counting paragraphs. It's dedication to details and flexible like Quicksilver, always adapting to the surroundings. And why all of this? All of this is because Virgo is the sign of Mercury's domicile and its exaltation. It's also both the detriment of Jupiter and the fall of Venus. But Virgo is a feminine earth sign, which brings us a sense of groundedness, sacredness, intentionality. And Virgo is a double-bodied sign, so it is ultimately extremely flexible. It's interesting to note, I think of the word or the term shoulder season, right? That time of year that isn't quite at the peak of travel season. Well, isn't it interesting that our Mercury-ruled seasons, both double-bodied signs, Virgo and Gemini, sit in this sort of shoulder season, right? Between seasons. This is very double-bodied, or we also call it mutable in the astrology world. Now, Virgo has, like all signs, associations in the tarot as well. And we can learn a lot about Virgo from these associations. So our major arcana card associated with Virgo is the Hermit. And our card associated with Mercury is the Magician. We're going to talk a little bit more about both of these archetypes when we discuss the themes of this lunation because they really are so prominent. But this lens, as I've mentioned, the sense of inner wisdom, even like focused solitude, grounded magic, and ritual, routine, repetition, right? Virgo is all about mastery through method and magic through measurement. The traditional archetype of Virgo is of the Virgin. And yes, that is true. But you know what I prefer to think of it as? Virgo as the witch in the woods. Because listen, she's not a virgin because she's a prude, but because she's sovereign. She knows what's worth waiting for, what's worth saving for, and she's a craftsperson, a healer, a priestess of preparation. And that preparation is so important to the sign of Virgo. Remember that hunger for excellence and pressure for results that we talked about? Why is that? Well, preparation is of the utmost importance to the Virgo because Virgo is the sign that comes between the harvest and the winter in the wheel of the year. In the darkness of the winter, what you reap at the harvest really, really matters. If you don't have enough food left, if you didn't prepare it correctly, you will starve. It's a matter of life and death. That's what it feels like to a Virgo. So now that you know a little bit more about the sign of Virgo, let's talk about what else is happening in the sky. Because like all of our lunations, this one is loaded with context. Now, I mentioned it initially, but it's important. This lunation happens at 0 degrees Virgo. And this is a symbolic degree, really that speaks to initiation, it's creation, it's starting new things. And we can see it also as a reset, right? As we move from Leo to Virgo, we reset our priorities. And above all, which aligns perfectly with the energy of a new moon anyway, it is all about planting seeds. Think about planting seeds for harvest. Or like the magician lighting the match in the dark room. What if we put our tarot archetypes together and the magician is lighting the match within the hermit's lantern? Now, it's good we talk about the magician as well because our friend Mercury is ruling this show. In fact, we can kind of think about it like Mercury is a triple ruler here. Not only is this the sign of Mercury's domicile and exaltation, this lunation is happening in the first bound of Virgo, which is also ruled by Mercury. Bounds are an ancient Egyptian way of breaking up each sign into other planetary rulership, so we get additional context. So if Mercury is ruling the show, let's check in with Mercury and see how Mercury is doing in this chart. Well, the good news is that Mercury is emerging from its retrograde shadow. It's currently at 12 degrees Leo. With Mercury in Leo in the sun sign, I'm seeing another correlation here because we talked about sign rulerships and bounds, but if you know my flavor of astrology and how I like to weave with the tarot, we can also look at the decan, and this is the first decan of Virgo, which is ruled by the sun. So even though Mercury is what we say averse or out of sight of this particular lunation, it almost feels like a little bit of mutual reception to me, very mercurial and solar at the same time. Now, what bodes even better is that now with Mercury at the very early degrees of Virgo, literally the sun just entered Virgo, that means that Mercury is also what we say protected or outside of its under the beams status. When a planet gets too close to the sun, we say it's either combust or under the beams. It doesn't function so well in that bright heat, right? But Mercury is feeling good right now. And that's also Mercury as a morning star, simply in Leo. This Mercury is strong-willed, has a creative drive, is super passionate about the things it cares for. And we see that passion, that sort of zeal, that drive also represented now in the fact that Mars is in a sextile to this Mercury. Mars is in Libra right now. So it's giving inspired action and clever solution. Now, very importantly, at this time, this lunation is also exactly square to Uranus. So Uranus is in Gemini at 1 degree. If we're talking about Mercury, we're just going to double down, would we say quadruple down on the mercurial influence, because Uranus is in Gemini, Mercury signed, and guess which bound it's in? Also Mercury's bound. So with this lunation square to Uranus, Uranus is the Promethean archetype of radical insight. This situation is giving electric pivots, new inspiration, surprises that might liberate us. And while it could be a little wild, right? This feels helpful overall. Why is that? Well, Mercury is widely known as a friend to humanity. In fact, the Orphic hymn identifies Mercury as the ruler of mankind. And Uranus, or we think about as that sort of Promethean archetype, Prometheus defied the gods in favor of humanity. Prometheus bestowed upon us the gift of fire and modern creation. And so when Mercury and Uranus work well together, I can't help but see that it is to our benefit, even though also deeply rooted in the Mercury archetype, well, and also Uranus, is the archetype of the trickster. Mercury in the Hellenistic world is certainly the trickster god as well. So yeah, this might bring up some wild surprises out of the woodwork, but at the end of the day, I think it is beneficial to us. If anything, this feels like catching the flame of inspiration. Our mind is on fire. There's a rebellious aspect, right? In service of humanity, in service of the collective. And hey, with both Uranus and the new moon in double-bodied signs, it's a reminder we got to stay flexible, people. So with that, all of this says that this isn't about rushing forward. It's about creating anew and pivoting wisely if needed. It's about honoring our own intelligence and innovation. So let's talk more about that and specific themes for this new moon. Like, what the heck does it even mean? We've already talked a lot about it, but let's just sum it up, right? This is about transformative new beginnings. That is so embedded in archetypal Hermes, right? Mercury is a messenger, a magician, and a psychopomp. The psychopomp is the one who ferries the souls of the dead between the realm of the living and the realm of the dead. In this way, Mercury is the ultimate liminal traveler, the boundary crosser, and the boundary dissolver. So if all of this heavy weight of Saturn has been impeding us in our progress, this is a moment when we can choose, how do we dissolve these boundaries and, like Mercury, move between worlds toward our new goals. It's pure alchemy, which brings me to my next theme, magic through method. Now, this is a time where we are manifesting the unseen through precision. It is the alchemy of attention of all things, right? The things we give our attention to are so important. And when we talk about Mercury's involvement, such strong involvement in this particular lunation, we called it a triple ruler, right? And you know what that makes me think of? Hermes Trismegistus. So Hermes is the Greek god Mercury. And Hermes Trismegistus is an evolution of Hermes, the Greek god. Hermes Trismegistus is actually what we call the triple god ruler that is Mercury. And Hermes Trismegistus is actually kind of this combination of both the Greek Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. And so that's where we double down on this magical power. In Hermeticism, the saying as above, so below is so representative of Mercury and the alchemical power that we're working with here. So what this means to me, as above, so below, is like what we're working with on the spiritual plane, we are working to bring that forward into the material realm now. And when we work to bring things forward, concrete things forward, this brings another Virgo theme to mind, and that is the power of craft. Virgo is such a dedicated sign, a sign dedicated to their craft. Virgo is about this daily repetition and the meditation that is present in our daily routines. So a power of craft is coming through of this lunation and how we create through our daily routines, how repetition and routine serve us. In this way, with Mercury as such a detail-driven archetype, this is small steps, right? Small steps, daily actions that lead to great results. You know what it is? This is your Virgo workbench. It's your laboratory where you are digging into what it takes to move forward. And we've mentioned it a couple times, but the flame is truly lit here. Virgo tends this sacred flame that is inside of us. That is why if something resonates for Virgo, nope, we're not considering at all. You don't get to play here, because Virgo tends their sacred flame with such dedication, and in proximity with eclipse season, there feels like symbolism here that this beginning to eclipse season initiates a sacred burn. I mean, let's look at this in the widest context, right? As we are working to bring new things to fruition under this 0-degree Virgo new moon, we have to think ahead to our next new moon, which is a solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo. 29 degrees is a degree of ending, of clearing. And so I'm asking at this time, what must be cleared to make room for your next form? That's the flame, right? It's our inner flame that takes over and burns away the things that are unnecessary. It's the spark of a new cycle. It's a new spiritual task list, we could say. And with that task list, you know it's Virgo, it's an earth sign, we're getting to work. And that is the final theme that resonates with this particular lunation. It's time to get back to work. And remember that one of the themes from our most recent full moon in Aquarius was this cultivation and realization of skills and abilities. Well, this is where we get to put those skills and abilities to work. Virgo gives form, function, and follow through to what we've got going here. So it gives us this reminder, right, to dedicate ourselves to the process 100%. Now, let's move into how we can integrate this powerful moment. And with that integration, in my book always comes reflection. So actions, concrete ways that we can integrate this new moon in Virgo. I want you to get real mercurial here. No surprise. I want you to write. I want you to free write. Brain dump your dreams. Make a vision board if that's your thing. And I want you to commit to a daily practice, whether that's your exercise practice, whether that is wiping down the kitchen counters every single night before you go to bed. Hey, whether it's making your bed. Remember, for Virgo, small actions repeated frequently activate big results. So commit to one daily practice that helps you drive toward your goals. And the last, slightly ritualistic action I'll leave you with. This is my favorite way to work with Mercury, and I've seen results from it. Write a letter to Mercury. Mercury is the god of communication, right? Also the god of correspondence and the mail and travel, little letters traveling through the mail. So I want you to write a letter to Mercury that's full of all of your intentions for the next cycle, those ideas you came up with in your brain dump and what you had represented on your vision board. Write a letter to Mercury and mail it to yourself. Wait to open it until this next solar eclipse in Virgo at the end of September and see just how far you've come in only a month's time. Now, with all of this writing, I'm always preparing journal prompts for you. So ways we can actively reflect include using these journal prompts. If free writing isn't your thing, what is the flame you tend? What are you dedicated to right now? What are you preparing today that will bring lasting results in the future? What does your routine say about your values? What newness are you alchemizing in your Virgo house? And what must be cleared away to allow it to emerge? And if all that writing has you feeling a little in your head, let's embody it. I'm all about dressing the archetype. This is our section of Astro Style. And so what does Virgo mean in terms of style, our outward adornment? It's neutral tones, it's natural fabrics. This is an earth sign, so cottons, linens, wools. And with Virgo, it's details, details, details. It's dressing with intention. So we're thinking pleats, embroidery, exposed seams, plaid, delicate buttons. And Virgo rules the waistline, or the digestive system as well. But let's talk about the waist when it comes to style. So your silhouettes, we're belting at the waist. You're wearing high-waisted everything and sleek lines. With Virgo, it's less is more styling. And if we're layering, it's functional layers. From a beauty perspective, this is where we get sleek hair, throw it in a bun, have it be practical. The style mantra for Virgo is really functional elegance. If you want to go deeper on all of this, book a reading with me. I offer a reflective and integrative approach that feels like a two-way conversation with me and your chart. So whether it's for your birthday, if it's a particular crisis point that you're moving through, or a creative turning point like Cherry, I would love to help you. The link to the readings is in the description and pinned in the comments. With that, happy Virgo new moon, my loves. Tend the flame, trim the excess, and trust the process. We'll see you next lunation.